countdown. Hey, what's going on? Peter, it's Ray. I'm at the beach. I'm at some undisclosed location. It's the off season. But good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. You know, you and I, we're both hip hop heads, and in the last few weeks, Clips, they dropped a new album, and it was pretty damn good. They hadn't released the album in like 15 years, and
Yeah.
it got me thinking the other day. You and me, we're kind of like the Clips of podcasters. We don't really drop pods that often, but when we do, we only bring the heat.
That's a good one. I like it. Yeah, I mean, what in general, what did you think of the album? We're talking Let God Him Sort Him Out. It's Pusha T and Malice. We've got features from John Legend, Kendrick Lamar, Tyler the Creator, Pharrell. So, any thoughts about it before we get into basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. They continue to just not be swayed by the current trends or the masses. It's not really like radio music, but if you like Kendrick, you probably would like this album if you haven't listened to it.
Yeah.
It's more
Um,
that style of rap than like Drake rap.
uh, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, if you, yeah, if you're familiar with Pusha T, I think you have a general idea of the
Yeah.
kind of lane of hip hop that they're in. And I don't think people are too familiar with Malice, but yeah, they are brothers. Malice has not really released a ton of music, yeah, in the last 10, 15 years. So, good treat for me. I enjoyed it. Very, very Watch the Throne type of energy in terms of
Mhm.
the production. And honestly, I felt like that was like the weakest part of the album. Not to say that that was bad. Not to say it was bad. It's just I thought the production was it was good. I don't know if it was perfect, but I feel like
Fair.
everything else I think really shines out as some of the best hip hop I've seen this year.
I don't know. I thought
So
it all worked really well together.
yeah, yeah, no, I think it's good. I it's 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 hard threading the needle between I don't think this is the best it could be and I think it's bad is so difficult these days. But yeah,
But you know what though? This is a big win for our generation because for anybody that doesn't know, Push is 48, Mouse is 52. But like this album did not sound like two old guys.
no, we did not. It was very it felt very relevant, very present in how it relates to like modern music trends. So
Yeah.
definitely check that out if you haven't listened to it before. And yeah, let us know what you think. I think we've both listened through it a few times now, I'm assuming. So if you want to find us either online, you can find me at Ravon Hackshaw, Peter at Buckets&88 with your those and other hip hop takes, as well as why the two of us have come together, which are the Denver Nuggets. We form the Four Corners podcast, and you can find us on podcasting platforms as well at the Four Corners Nuggets podcast. So drop us a like, give us a review, subscribe. It's free, supports us, supports the show, it keeps us doing what we're doing. And with all that said, let's get into the Nug talks. So last time we spoke, it was prior to the draft. Um, I guess before we go into free agency, any disappointment that the Nuggets didn't draft anyone? Didn't move back into the draft, anything like that?
Not really. I mean, the only frustration was that they didn't have a pick in the first place, but that's because Calvin Booth really wanted Payne Watson. So,
Well,
well, and I think our first was actually the one that was in the Aaron Gordon deal that conveyed the
yeah, I was
secret.
going to say get ready because the future does not hold many first round picks for the Denver
Yeah.
Nuggets.
So I mean, I was okay with standing pat in the draft because I just think that when you look at the position the Nuggets are in, which is they're trying to win now, adding youth just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, we kind of saw that the last 2 years. And, we've talked at length about Calvin Booth and his plan, but there is a tipping point, right? So it's like if you still want to develop Strother and Watson and Pickett, that's that's reasonable, but you can't like develop half the roster, right? Because like it was overkill last year, you know. Um Najee's relatively young, even though he got a new deal. Hunter Tyson's still here. So I just don't think they needed any more young guys to try to develop when they're trying to win. So, it's always tough, like when the draft happens and your team does absolutely nothing because you feel like other teams got better while you didn't. But you just have to remember that it's very, very rare for rookies to make an impact on winning, right? They can sometimes put up numbers, but for them to actually be positive players in the first year in the NBA, you got to be like really, really good. So the chances of the Nuggets acquiring a player like that were not going to be possible without paying a steep price, right? Like it would have taken trading Christian Brown or something like that to acquire a high enough lottery pick that's like, oh, this guy's going to play in the rotation. So as far as the draft goes, I wasn't surprised, and they just didn't need any more young guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, even some of the guys, one of the reasons I'm not super upset by the moves they made in the past is just terms of like moving up, trading past picks for present picks or I should say future picks for present picks, is that you kind of get ahead of the curve on development. Like a pick that would have been taken this year, I just don't think would have been very relevant to the Nuggets in their kind of future.
Yeah.
And I let me put it this
Well,
way.
and Ray, sorry to cut you off, but like, don't you think there's also an awkwardness with it, right? Because it's like as good as Jokic is, he's probably tired of having young guys come in to try to teach them, right? And we've always talked about how Jokic isn't like LeBron or anything, where he's like always complaining about something, but he's still like on the wrong age of 30 now, and he wants to win. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to bring in another guy that's, even if they're good, is going to go through those rookie mistakes like he had to go through with Mike, like he had to go through with Strother and Watson, and still sort of has to. You can tell when he's visibly frustrated. It's not that he's going to like always chew his guys out. It's more kind of just like the eye roll, the head shake of like, dude, you were in the wrong spot again. So I think from that perspective, I think the team and the management finally realized like, you know what, we don't need to add any more variables because when you're a young player in the NBA and you have a lot of upside, that first year you're sort of still kind of trying to figure out who you are. I think it's actually really hard to go to a winning situation as a rookie. You know, Christian Brown had the right approach, but that's because he already had like a role player type game in college. I think most guys are like the best guy on their college team. They go to NBA team and they're like, I'm going to ball out. But it's like if you go to the Nuggets, you're not really going to get that opportunity. So I'm sure most rookies probably didn't even want to go to the Nuggets anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and even Christian, year one, he really didn't do all that much. I mean, as much
Right.
as he played a little bit, it wasn't all that impressive. But now, I look down that list of like Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, and they've got a couple of years under their belt for the most part. They've got some playoff experience. They've got that exposure. Um, he and I think now they have good feedback that they can work forward with. Like I think for Christian, I thought he shot well in the regular season. I don't know if he shot that well in the playoffs, so I'm sure that's something he wants to work on. Julian, I think defense has always been a question for him in terms of staying in front of guys. I think that kind of lateral quickness, right, is something that he'll be able to work on. I think Peyton, obviously, it's the physicality, it's his body. And these guys all have that things to go into the season where they know what to do. And whether it works out for them or not, you've got so many options. I think at each position. So I'm pretty optimistic about where Denver can go. Um, so to not to bury the lead, I guess. The big move of the offseason was Cam Johnson. Denver's traded Michael Porter for along with the 2032 first round pick, which we also comment on a little bit later because I think that pick, depending on the circumstance, can be really valuable. But just in the context of Cam and Mike, where do you feel like Cam is an upgrade for Denver? And is there any way you feel like Denver is losing anything with his addition?
So, as far as an upgrade, I think he is an upgrade in the decision making aspect of the team, right? I've always said I like having high IQ players around Jokic. Cam's definitely a high IQ player. He's not one of those guys where you watch him play and go, "What the hell was he doing there?" He usually takes good shots and he usually makes good decisions, and so I think that's going to be something that's definitely going to be appreciated by Jokic and the rest of his teammates. I think he's perfectly content with being the type of guy that's like, sometimes he's going to get a lot of shots and he'll have a night where he scores 25, maybe even a few 30-point games this year. And he's going to be okay having games when he has like single digits, 7, 8, 9 points, but the team wins. And, maybe you had to spend more of your energy guarding the other team's best player. As we know, the small forward position is pretty deep around the NBA. So it's crucial to have a good small forward if you're trying to win the whole thing. And I think, Cam and Mike are different players, but replacing Mike with Cam is like, you know, a lot of people weren't a fan of me saying this on Serbian Corner last week. I said it was a lateral move, but there does have potential for it to be a better unit. I will admit that. The places where it hurts, I think, is just the size. Rebounding and you know, how much is Cam going to have to guard dudes that are like significantly bigger and stronger than him? Hopefully not a ton, but it's going to happen some. And I think, I just want everybody to calm down and understand that there's going to be an adjustment period here. I see a lot of people saying the Nuggets are going to win 60 games. They might. I don't want to poo-poo that, but I also think it's more likely that maybe they start off like 500 for the first 10, 20 games and then find their groove. And I think they'll be right in that 54 to 57 win range, which I think will be good enough for a top 4 seed.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Jokic is great. Jamal should be, if not who he was last year, hopefully better.
Yeah.
And I do think that Jeff kind of sees Cam as a general overall upgrade. I along with the so he kind of mentions his availability. I think just the general physicality. You get a little bit smaller, you get a little bit older. I need to see more. I'm going to need to see more, I should say, from like who's getting these rebounds, who's fighting from a physicality standpoint in the front court. I think that's going to be an interesting question that I have for this future 25, 26 Denver Nuggets team because I think they'll be smarter. Like I think Cam is more mature. He's got the experience. He's had time kind of being I don't want to say being the guy in Brooklyn, but having more things run through him and for him and getting to experience those dynamics. However, I want to see, can they be good defensively? I think is still the biggest question. It's not that
Yeah.
obviously Cam's a
I
smarter
agree.
player, but also sometimes to disrupt teams, sometimes to really overwhelm a team defensively, you have to take it to that team, whether you're meeting them at the rim, whether you're pushing them out on the perimeter. I still have some questions about Denver's ability to do that, especially in the starting unit.
Yeah. A couple things. So if you rewind to 2 years ago, Would you agree that KCP was the best defender on the team?
No, I think it was Aaron.
Aaron? Okay.
Um, but KCP was a close second.
I think it's a fair question to ask, like, right now, who is the best defender in the starting unit? I mean, it should be Aaron, but I don't know. Maybe it's Christian. He still kind of struggles with the really quick guys, but I think it's fair to say they don't have like one elite defender in the starting lineup, you know. Unless you want to throw metrics at me and tell me it's Jokic because he's got those amazing hands where he gets steals and rebounds. Like he's good. Like he's not horrible, of course, but he's not a stopper either. So,
Hmm.
the thing with Cam too that I want to stress about the size is like when you go from the east to the west, that is a real adjustment. I mean, it's not just that the teams are better. Like that's true. The depth is there. It's also the size, right? Like if you play the Timberwolves, he's going to be either guarding Jaden McDaniels or Anthony Edwards. But guess what's going to happen on a switch? A shot goes up. Now he's trying to box out Nas Reed or Rudy Gobert. Like it's gonna be tough. It's gonna just be a more physical game for him. And also, just I know this is like way down in the weeds. People don't care about this stuff, but geography, like the West, is so much more spread out. It's just a more taxing league because the closest flights are Salt Lake City and Oklahoma City. Everything else is like over an hour, hour and a half away. He playing on Brooklyn last year. He could have like 2 straight weeks where he doesn't have a flight over like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, especially early on, there's going to be a transition period, I think, for him, both because of the altitude, but also because of the just being a new place, getting used to new players. I think there's going to be those adjustments in all ways, and getting used to the travel is one of them as well. But I don't. It's interesting because I have no idea what's going to happen. You know,
I mean, I think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to be bad. I just think it's going to be different, right?
Yeah, I guess what I mean is I think they'll be good. I just don't know how everything is going to pan out. Our team's going to test him. I think when Mike got to Denver, a lot of that first 2 years was every team thinking, okay, how can I go at Mike? Because I don't know this guy. I haven't really seen him be, is it worthwhile to kind of turn him into a mark, so to speak? And, I think Cam will kind of see a similar like testing round in that way of like, especially when we're talking about, you asked who is the best defender on the Denver Nuggets. I think it's Christian right now. I might say Peyton a second, just in terms of impact defensively. I think they can all be smart, but Aaron, I think, took a little bit of a step back last year, both because of his health. That calf injury, I think, took away some of the quickness that made him so flexible. And so, his ability to guard bigs and front court players, but also to keep up with guys on the perimeter. And when you combine that with Jokic and Jamal, it's hard to say. I hope they're. I'll just. Do you have a defensive ranking in terms of what you might expect from Denver, and what would be like? What would you call a success, and what would you call a disappointment?
I would call top 15 a success. Excuse me. And I would call like if they're 20th or worse a disappointment, 18th or worse, it's like, it's probably not quite good enough. But I think they do need to be top half of the league to be a real threat.
That's kind of where I land as well. I think if they come together, I think that togetherness is also very important. Are they bought into the rotations and being in the right place and the right time and getting back on defense and doing all the little things and applying that experience, that veteranness that they have, they should be able to be top half. But
Can
I
I
have
give
a
you
I'm
one more
yeah.
slight thing that I think Cam does better than Mike?
Sure.
Excuse me. I think we always talk about Mike's lack of mobility because of his back and everything. I think one area that actually hurt the Nuggets that never really got talked about was like in transition. Shot goes up, and either Mike's the one that took the shot, or if he's going for the rebound, as soon as the other team gets the ball, he doesn't have a very quick first step, like going back the other way. It's kind of like he's got to collect himself and get composed before he can take off. I'm not saying he's lazy. It's literally just, I think, his body. And I think because Cam's a little more fluid, just being back down the floor the other way by like half a step can really like gum up some more fast breaks. And I'm hoping that the transition defense is better this year.
Yeah, I also think about in that context where he's taking the shots from.
Yeah.
I mean, if Cam is much more of a movement shooter and he's going to be taking more shots, if it's hard to get back when you're deep in the corner or
Yeah.
you're on the baseline in the short corner or something like that. Where if you're taking more of your shots from above the break, from a few feet behind the 3 point line, as Cam is a little bit more want to do than Mike was, I think even that helps you in that sort of get back on defense dynamic. So I'm optimistic about that, and I mean we'll see. I also want to talk about before we move on. I want to plug maybe a question from CT. Do you both think Cam is a slam dunk like mostly every Nuggets fan slash media? Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? It's probably not as much of a slam. It's not as cut and dry as I think fans slash media are making it out to be, only because it's kind of like what you mentioned earlier. You know what? Sometimes it feels good just to do something. And that makes you feel like, okay, you're making moves, you're trying stuff, you're getting better. But we've seen, I think this about the Clippers every year. Every year the Clippers are like, we did all this stuff and we got so much better and we won the offseason. I'm like, but you're still the Clippers and you still have to do the work. So it's not that I think it's not bad, anything that they've done. However, I think there's still a long road ahead to turn this from an opportunity into actual success, and I think that's where I land. And there might be some
So
cost down the line as well.
so that's an interesting phrase, slam dunk. I don't think it's a slam dunk. I think it's very close to an uncontested layup, though, because he's such a smart basketball player. Here would be one of my biggest concerns, and this is something that would probably only happen in like the first 20 games or so. I think there's a real chance that Cam Johnson comes in and just doesn't want to step on any toes, because if there's one thing you can say about Michael Porter Jr., he does not lack confidence. Like he is an aggressive player, and it took like a long time for Malone to kind of be like, "Hey, man, you're playing with the best player in the world. It's you should probably defer to him." And then he just never really had the handle that Murray did. So it's like he was always going to kind of be the third guy. It's gonna be interesting to see his approach next year, but I think with Cam, it's like he's been on good teams with the Suns, but they had Chris Paul, who's, like, dishing the ball all over the place, right? Jokic is a great passer, but it's a little different, right? He's not, like, breaking a defense down. He's more just, like, surveying, and then you have to cut. So, I know Cam will be good at that, but would you agree there's a fine line between playing the right way and, like, staying aggressive enough? I just hope that Cam, like, understands that like he's there not just to be a cog and a role player, but like you're gonna have big games for us too. So when you have a matchup, attack the rim, attack the paint, be aggressive. I think he'll get there. I just don't know if it's gonna be from game one because it kind of reminds me a little bit of like you remember when we brought in Paul Millsap and it was like Jokic kept deferring to him and they eventually had to pull Millsap aside and be like, "Hey man, you probably got to talk to Yoke." And then he finally did. He's like, because he was over himself, right? He was like a vet at that point trying to win. He was still a good player, but he's like, "Hey man, you're the best player on this team. Like, we're following you." So that's not like a perfect comparison because obviously Jokic is still the best player on the team, not Cam. I just hope
Mhm.
that he's like encouraged by his teammates to breathe in his role and understand like he's a big part of the team and not just play like. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I mean with Mike it was true as well. Is like even he would say this himself. Is like what is his job? Is to shoot.
Yeah.
Like and people can meme and joke about Mike never swinging the rock or whatever it might be.
Right.
But when Mike got passive, literally when Mike started to pass more, he had like I think a career high in like assists last year, which I think everyone's happy about. Did really well inside the arc, but people get really frustrated with him because he's not doing his job, which is to shoot. And I think the same thing is going to be true for Cam. Is that as much as the Nuggets are going to appreciate flexibility, at the same time, the floor spacing is going to be the most important thing. And so he's got to be ready to have a quick trigger and take advantage of the opportunities that are presented with him.
Yeah.
But in rounding out the trade, I think there's like an underrated part of the trade that people aren't thinking about now that could be a big deal later. The 2032 pick could be really valuable. I know it's very far from now, and we don't have to think about it for 7 years. But depending on how this goes, we've seen great players in the league play late into their years, right? We're seeing LeBron at 40. We're seeing Chris Paul at almost 40. We're seeing, Nick Batum and some other guys. If Jokic is playing in 2032, this is a slam dunk trade. That's how I feel. If Jokic is playing, and because that means that pick is probably mid table, maybe even late 20s if they're
Yeah.
still, if you want to pull, like, I remember when Ray Lewis, I'm a Ravens fan. I'm sorry for my Broncos fans in the chat. I remember when Ray Lewis had his like last ride year. If Jokic is having his retirement tour, let's go all in for this one last year in 2032. This is a slam dunk because you really won out the margins of the deal. However, if he's like if he retires in 2035 or something and you're in the middle of a rebuild and you've got a top 5 pick or something and all of a sudden you're handing it to Brooklyn, well, damn. That's got to sting a little bit. And hopefully you got out whatever you want to get out of this move, and hopefully that's championships. It's something to keep in mind when we talk about, did you win the trade, did you not win the trade?
I feel like as long as he's healthy, I think Jokic will still be playing in 2032 because you have to remember, like, these salaries are insane. They keep going up. So I don't have the projections off the top of my head, but dude's going to be making like maybe 80, $90 million. I mean, I think you saw Devin Booker just sign an extension. He's going to be making like 75 million in the last year of that deal. So I think in 7 years, Jokic is probably going to be in the 80s, maybe even the $90 million. Like, would you walk away from $90 million? Like, I think that he's probably going to play until it's not worth it to him anymore.
And I'm optimistic that he'll do that because some players I think age better than others.
Yeah.
I was chatting with some friends earlier today about guards and size, and I was talking to them about the way that if you're a guard in the NBA and your game is dependent on your athleticism and your vertical ability and your speed and your quickness, those things they get tough when you turn 30 and as you get into your mid 30s. But I think Jokic's game exists in such a way where it's not super dependent on how fast he can run or how high he can jump or how fast he can do this thing or that thing. And so the old man strength, I think that's easier to retain. And his biggest tool is his mind. And
Yeah.
I think that those are the things that are going to carry him, much like LeBron right now, I think are going to carry him into his mid 30s, maybe even late 30s, if as long as he wants to play.
Yeah.
I guess that's the only thing.
That's a good point. And the way I predict Jokic's career to go, like after 35, is, we talk about him like not having crazy athleticism, so his game will age well. The first thing to go is pretty much always like your first step. He does still beat a lot of centers off the dribble with that pump and go move. So if he starts getting stopped on that, The main thing that it'll affect to me will be his scoring will go down because he'll just have less shots. But I still think he'll be able to average high assists and high rebounds. You know, it's going to be on the Nuggets to just build a good team around him. Make sure you have enough shooting, have enough defense. I mean, this is a conversation for like years down the road, but because I know it's going to make Nuggets fans sad. But the key to like being having a good Nuggets team in Jokic's late 30s will be whoever replaces Aaron Gordon, right? You're going to need a really dynamic, athletic player at the four who can rebound and defend. As we all know, athleticism is usually the first thing to go, and AG's about to be 30 if he's not already 30. So unfortunately, he's probably going to fall off before Jokic, but that's a conversation for another day.
It's also like, how good is Jamal Murray going to be? I don't know. Is he still going to be in the league? I don't know. It's a long. I'm not saying Jamal is washed or anything. It's just that's 7 years from now, you know. So it'll be tough. And I think let's just wait to see.
Can
So
I
slam
can I
dunk or
give
not slam
you
dunk?
can I give you my Homer take on Jamal real quick though?
Okay.
You know who didn't work out all that much during the summers and had a really long career? Andre Miller. Andre Miller famously just like got fat every summer, and he played until he was like 40. He didn't have a super athletic based game. Now he was a much better passer than Jamal, but Jamal was a much better shooter, and therefore I think as long as Jamal can shoot, he's got a place on the team. And I'm really excited to watch him next year because we haven't talked about it yet. I'm sure you want to talk about it next. Having Jonas Valanciunas now, a real center on the second unit, that's a guy that can set real screens. So I'm hoping that Jamal can get loose because that's how he likes to get loose. He rarely shakes guys off. He usually uses that nice screen from Jokic to get himself free, and I'm sure he could do the same thing with Val.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. When you're talking about the trade, obviously one of the other benefits is that Denver acquired a lot of cap space. Right now they're beneath the tax even, which is fun for the owners. I'm sure they're happy about that. But it's also meant that Denver's been able to spend a little bit more money on the fringes of the roster. Obviously, Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr., those are minimum guys. I'm not going to put them in like a benefit of the trade for that reason. But Jonas absolutely is that now they have a backup center who can provide a little bit of structure, who they can do different things with. His shot has fallen off so hard. I know I used to be like a big JV fan, but I think when he was shooting like two and a half threes a game, hitting 36% of them, I'm like, oh, that's actually really valuable. And he was more of like, I thought he was starting caliber, maybe even upper tier starter. Um, 20% last year, not the best, but he's going to get rebounds. He's going to finish plays inside. He's not going to be a great perimeter defender, but I think Denver has some smaller ball options for when they want to go to that. It just means that you can do different things now.
Can I just remind everybody what Jonas went through last year, real quick? He started the season on the Wizards, whose point guard was Jordan Poole and rookie Bub Carrington. I'm high on Bub, by the way. And then he got traded to the Kings, who traded De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs, which meant their backcourt was essentially Levine and DeRozan, so no real point guard. So the poor guy has kind of had some pretty rough structure the past season. And I think he's going to get to play a lot with Jamal now. And even if he's playing with Pickett, like I think we both trust Pickett, right? He's nobody would call him like a dynamic player, but he knows how to play basketball. He's going to make the right play a lot, and I think that's really going to help Jonas because as we've seen time and time again, guys that are in the NBA from Europe, they all know how to play basketball. None of them are just like getting in there to chuck up shots for the most part. So I think being in like on a good team with structure is going to help him be a little better. I'm not saying he's going to like light the world on fire, but I think Jonas can just get to respectable, backup center level, and that's really all we need. We don't need him to be like the best backup big in the league. We just need him to be like top half.
Yeah, I mean, top half would be pretty. That would be a big win for the
Yeah.
Nuggets. I think a win for Pickett as well. I think a win for Jamal coming off when he does playing those bench units. And I think it gives both him and right now I would say Duran is the third center. I'm still like he's more. I don't know if he's a center slash power forward or more of a power forward slash center, but I think now you can go with like you want to go small, you can play Duran at the five. You want to go big, you can play with Jonas. You can play them both together. I feel like both of those things are possible, and it's you've got a lot of ingredients. Now you just need the chef that is David Adelman to kind of bring it all together in a way that makes sense. And it's really, I think it's challenging. It's going to be challenging for him because he has a lot of options, and that's always tough and finding a balance between them. But it's where a good chef shines. So, do you want to talk about Bruce?
Yeah, I think what a weird couple of years it's been for him, right? I mean, wins a championship with Denver. Seems like at the time of his life, which is cool. And then you really can't blame the guy. Pacers offered him 22 million for 2 years. Takes the money. Played okay in Indiana. Not great, but I mean, he's always just been a role player. Like I don't think there's any one thing you would say Bruce is elite at other than maybe like if you just
Vibes.
classify him as an energy guy off the bench, right? Like he's gonna bring energy.
Hmm.
So I know that's not like a stat skill. That's more of like a vibes thing. But then he gets traded to Toronto. That team's a mess. And then he gets traded to the Pelicans, who were going nowhere. I'm pretty sure Zion was already hurt. So I think he's really excited, not just because he loves Denver, but he's like rejuvenated, right? He's going to be reinvigorated to be on a good team that cares about each other. He's got friends on the team, right? I'm sure like he's probably been texting with these guys. I mean, wasn't he at freaking one of the games in the Clippers series? Like he was in the crowd. I thought that was hilarious. I was like, this guy's like technically not a free agent yet, even though he's going to be. He's like already.
Chatting with the owners and stuff.
It's like I'm. Don't you think his agent was probably upset about that? He's probably like, Denver's not going to offer you anything more than the minimum if they already know you want to come back. But you
I'm
know
gonna
what?
say no. I
Maybe
think he
he's
was
got his
excited.
money and maybe he's good like just playing for minimums now. But I think we should also point out with the cap going up, minimums, it's not like a bad gig, right? They're still making what? He's going to be making like 3 million or something like that. So
I feel like it's closer to five. It depends on your
yeah, I
veteranness
don't know
in
the
the
exact
league.
rules. I just know it's not like he's making peanuts, right? He's still getting paid good money to play basketball in a city that he loves with players and teammates that he likes and coaches he's familiar with too. Adelman's been here for a while, so even though he's a new head coach, he knows Bruce. So I'm excited. I guess I'm cautiously optimistic. I think a lot of people think that this is like a slam dunk home run. Maybe it is, but I don't just like magically expect Bruce to be as good as he was here that one year because he did have some injuries. He's a little older, but I think he's still like 28, 29. So he's
He'll be
right in his
29.
prime. Yeah. I mean, I think, and if he's going to come off the bench, he'll probably give us like somewhere between like 18 to 25 minutes a night. I think it'll be perfect. I think it'll be a good fit. We just have to hope that he can like replicate that good shooting year he had for us. I think he shot like 36% from three as a Nugget, which is not lighting the world on fire. But if you look at his career numbers, they're pretty ghastly.
They're up and down. It's not like he's always bad. It's not like he's always great. But yeah, hopefully this year he's on the better end of his potential outcomes.
But
And
he's
even
more of a vibes guy, right? Like you don't look at the stat sheet at the end and go, "Oh man, Bruce only had like 8 points and 2 rebounds." It's kind of like, no, he had like 2 steals in clutch time, and then
mhm.
he had like a huge dunk at the end of a run. The other team called timeout. His points carry a lot of weight. It seems like.
Yeah, I think he's gonna, from a production standpoint, he's gonna do a little bit of everything. He's
Yeah.
gonna score a little bit. He's gonna pass a little bit. He's gonna play some defense. He's gonna shoot. He's not gonna be perfect at any of those things, but he's super flexible, and I think makes makes that optionality more effective because you can kind of link things together in a variety of ways, right? If you wanted to go all defense, you could go Bruce, Christian Brown, and Peyton Watson on the perimeter and
Yeah.
tell them to just 90 feet. I want full court pressure every possession. We'll do that for 5 minutes. You come off the floor, and maybe next time I give you, I don't know, I give you Jamal and Bruce and Cam, and Bruce is perfectly capable of linking those guys together as well, and I think that it makes David Adelman's job that much easier. And you asked a little bit about the finances. I mean, he might be making the minimum right now, but this was how he got paid anyway. So
Right.
if you're his agent, I don't think you're that upset either. There could be a payday in his future as well.
That's fair. And another thing that he's really good at that doesn't show up on the stat sheet is Bruce is really good at the game within the game. And what I mean by that, less technical term is he's good at talking shit. Do you remember like him going back and forth with D'Angelo Russell in that Lakers series? He basically killed that dude's confidence. And then, of course, Malone had his back, which was hilarious too. He's like, I don't know if they're going to play D'Angelo Russell anymore. I love that so much. And yeah, it's going to be great to see him just like getting under people's skin. He's going to be our Alex Caruso, right? I mean, we all hate Caruso as Nuggets fans, but he's like the exact kind of guy you want on your team, and he was huge in helping them win the championship, and Bruce was huge in helping us win the championship. So I'm excited to have him back for vibes, but also because I know that he's not the type of player that needs to be having like a good shooting game to make an impact on the game. If he misses like his first four shots, he's still going to sprint back hard. He's going to play defense. He's going to make the right play, and he's just going to fit. It's like you don't even have to question the fit. He might play poorly, right? He might shoot bad, but I don't expect Bruce to just completely unravel or anything like that.
No, it's like David mentioned this. Dan's mentioned this. Sorry, he has a high floor pretty much throughout his game. It's very well rounded. There's sometimes having someone who's not gonna
Yeah,
be a mark in any particular way. They're not gonna leave him alone
yeah.
entirely unless he misses a bunch in a row.
He
Um,
doesn't play hero ball, right? He's not like if he starts off over 3, he's not going to try to get it back and be like, "Oh, I got to make this next one." Like he doesn't play like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he'll be a good contributor. Happy to have him back. And, talking about the vibes, I think he's going to bring the energy on the court, but also off the court. It's nice to have him around the building. It's nice to have him back in the city. And it really starts to create the impression that Denver has a culture that they've built here in the same way that I think you see with a lot of exceptional organizations is that you start to see that guys want to come back. You start to see that, oh, if I have the option, I'd rather come to where I know the organization is going to be professional. And I know that we're going to be as competitive as we can be. I'm not saying that they're all the way there on that. For example, you get a practice facility that would be really nice. I'm a little embarrassed about that still, but it's a good sign. I'll say that. Do you have any? So Tim Hardaway Jr. is another guy that Denver's brought in. I feel like he's a pretty good shooter. I low key don't have a lot of expectations for him outside of that. But do you have any thoughts about THJ?
Yeah, I thought it was a solid pickup mostly because he's the classic like microwave scorer, right? You throw him out there beginning of the second quarter, you see if he can get hot. And if he does, he'll steal you some minutes. And if not, it's like he's probably not going to play many games in crunch time this year, but he's a good depth piece. He's a veteran, knows how to play. I think he, had some other options, but he chose Denver specifically because he got to play against Jokic a lot with Dallas, and he probably just likes the way we play and likes the way we move the ball. And so, as a guy, he's got a very similar mentality to Mike, right? Where it's like he never really met a shot he didn't like, but you're going to get a lot of good looks on this team playing off of Jamal and off of Jokic. So I'm optimistic that he can have plenty of good games for us, but I'm not going to come in and say it's like a slam dunk because every team he's been on, like fans have gotten frustrated with him. So he'll put up some stinkers, but I think he won't frustrate fans as much as Julian Strather, right? Because Julian is just even after in year 2, it seemed like he didn't really quite understand like what to do or where to be on defense. Tim's not a great defender, but I feel like he's at least had more reps, so it's like he's less prone to make mistakes.
I think it's a matter of opinion. Because look, I mean, it's one thing if I can overlook mistakes when you're in year two. If you're in year 10, I'm like, you should know. You should know this. It's like if you have an 8-year-old and they're wetting the bed, that's different than if you have a 4-year-old who wets the bed. It's a little bit different. I'm like, we worked on this. But the nice part is you have both those guys, right? Is that like if Julian is shit in the bed and you're like you're not happy and you want to go a different direction, you can go a different direction. But hey, if Tim is moving with a sense of like entitlement, he thinks, oh, of course I'm going to play. I can do whatever I want. I'm guaranteed this role. Well, you got other options there too, and I think that's the thing that you can kind of leverage them against each other in a way that I think is going to get the best out of them both. Is my hope
Well,
anyway.
I also just want to say that he is known around the league and by fans as a shooter, and that's fair. But he's also 6'5" and a pretty good athlete. Like, I don't think he's only going to stay on the perimeter and shoot threes. This is not like when the Nuggets added Brim's forms a few years ago. I know how much you hated that move, but he's actually going to be able to get to the paint a little bit, cut a little bit, and get some easy twos. I feel like in our offense. So I think he's a more versatile player than he gets credit for sometimes.
Yeah, I just think it's the defense for me where I'm like, I don't know, we'll see. I want them to be this like I'd like to see them be 10th in defense. That would be great. I would be ecstatic. And I don't know if he's going to be part of that, but it's something, you know. But also, so kind of tying back into the culture bit. I mean, this is kind of Denver's next attempt. We've kind of if we've seen it with, well, Russ hasn't gotten a new job, but Bruce got paid. A number of other guys, getting paid, getting at least opportunities to show themselves and play good basketball and play relevant basketball. However much Tim plays, hopefully he comes away from it with, some new fans, maybe. And I'm not saying culture can be internal or external. I think fans can be a part of the culture. And I don't
James Harden
know
usually
what
existing for culture.
I can neither confirm nor deny anything that I'm about to say, but you never know what kind of investment opportunities might become available, make kind of branding deals that might become available when you ingratiate yourself to a new community of people. And as I mentioned, I mean, Bruce, the cowboy hat in a Ford F-150, I kind of see it. Um, so hopefully, the city loves him. Hopefully, Tim can kind of replicate a lot of those, kind of vibes, and yeah, just be a part of a winning team. Um, do you have any? So, for do you have any thoughts about David Adelman maybe going into the season? So we've kind of talked about the veteran options that he has. We talked a little bit about we've both today and in the past about like the younger guys on the roster, about Christian, about Peyton, about speaking about mistakes in year 5, Zeke Naji, talking about these other guys. How do you feel about David's ability to navigate all of these different ingredients that he has in the kitchen and produce a dish that is tasty?
I'm really excited because I think him being here so long, he sees what works and what doesn't work, right? So it's like, I don't think he's going to get rid of anything that Malone did that worked, but he's going to keep adding stuff, right? I think I got to give him a lot of credit. One of the reasons that Oklahoma City series was so close was because of Denver's defense. Now you can just sit there and tell me, well, Oklahoma City can't shoot. They didn't shoot the three well in any of their 4 series. That's fair. But you still have to force them to take those shots, right? So I thought that whatever he did on defense, switching to a lot of the zones, I think was effective. Um, and I think the players really, they really like it when you try stuff, right? It's like they want you to play to their strengths. And I think Malone's biggest weakness was he was a very principled basketball coach. And that can get you pretty far. He won a championship. Like I don't want to poo-poo Malone. I'm a Malone defender. Like he won a title mostly his way. Don't feel like he gets a ton of credit for it, mostly because he's got, what some people already think is a top 15 player of all time. I get that. That's also fair. But I do think he got stagnant. And so I think Adelman kind of is like, well, why don't we try some different things? So I'm excited for him, to bring some wrinkles. If we see more zone this year, that's fine. I mean, obviously a good team should still be able to know how to beat a zone. But if it's just maybe to get some guys some rest, that would be good than like always flying around the court. And then offensively, I think we saw in the limited time with him that he's going to play a little bit more of an egalitarian style instead of just like give the ball to Jokic every play, which I'm a fan of because one, you want to keep the defense guessing, but two, you also want to like empower the other guys to do more stuff. And I think having Cam Johnson is going to help that even more than with Mike, who can't really dribble. So it's like I'm looking. Maybe we'll have some plays this year where Jokic is like a decoy, you know, and it's just like AG and Cam on one side of the floor. Who knows? Because the more times you have guys scoring that isn't Jokic, that's letting him get rest during the game. I think that's like a low key thing that Mike was so valuable at is he'd have those big first quarters, right? And we'd always be like, oh man, like what happened? Why didn't he, you know, keep it up in the second half? And the reason is because the teams changed their game plan. They're like trying to shut off Jamal and Jokic, and they're like, we'll see if Michael Porter can beat us. And then usually, yeah, he beats you. So now you have a different style player who's a little bit more dynamic with the basketball. I'm hoping that that's where the Cam trade can really help us is Cam should be a better second half player than Michael Porter is. Because as much, I've always defended Porter, but he did have too many times when he just disappeared. And it's like, dude, if they're going to guard you tightly, you still got to find a way to get open and make yourself useful or at least crash the glass. And he did it sometimes, but I don't think he did it as much as he could have.
I have a hot take. Maybe it's not a hot take. I don't know. I don't think Cam is going to be as dynamic as people are making it up. Not just because of him, but because of the way the team is.
Could be.
Like you're still, unless they're moving more away from the Jokic Murray 2-man game than I expect, and more away from AG in the dunker than I expect, and more away from Christian. I don't know. What are you getting
I
him
have
more
to ask you a
involved?
question though. Is
Yeah.
because this is that's what you said, but this is what I heard. Are you actually telling me that Cam Johnson might not play as great as people think because Jamal Murray likes to hold the ball too much?
This is not this. You're putting words in my mouth, sir, and I did
Ugh.
not.
That's a big topic over the years is like, oh, MPJ couldn't eat because Jamal wouldn't let him. I thought it was like hilarious.
I'm here. I've been hearing this the opposite this week. Is that Jamal has been held back by Michael Porter. That's what I've been hearing.
I'm not saying
In
that.
some chats in one particular Discord in particular.
Oh,
But I mean, it's not well. Truth. I'll be honest. I do think Jamal will his path to being better is being more decisive with his actions and dribbling less. Like, yes, he needs to spend less possessions dribbling for 12 seconds and then handing off grenade or doing whatever he's going to do.
yeah.
And he needs to be better. If you're going to allow Cam to really get the most out of himself, Jamal needs to be able to get off the ball and get off the ball with quickness and get off the ball, get up the court quickly, get into the sets quickly, give opportunities for that continuity to get the ball popping, to get players moving, to allow all those things to happen. Um, I that's you know, so when I said I don't know what's going to happen, that's probably like the big thing. I don't know if that's going to happen. You know, Cam might be capable a little of more than Mike. He has the experience. You know, because he's been in Brooklyn doing not a lot besides just being like, okay, it's kind of your show to run to a degree, and it doesn't need to be that fruitful, but we'll see.
Well,
I think it
well,
depends
Cam
on more than that.
is one of the other reasons I think Jamal could have a career year. The first reason is Jonas, him having a real center in the second unit. But the second reason is Cam's a better passer than MPJ. So, Mike averaged like
Two,
2 assists basically, and how many of those were to Jamal? Probably like one a week. I think
sure.
Cam's going to pass the ball to Jamal more, just swinging it around. So I'm hoping that Murray gets some better looks this year.
So here's the thing, though. That means Cam is shooting less.
Maybe.
So I'm like, I don't know what you want. What do you want from him? Do you want him
I
shooting
just want the
more,
team to
or do
take good
you?
shots.
Yeah, I do too. It's just like you can only do one thing with the ball. You can pass it or you can shoot it. So I'm
Or
really
you can catch
curious.
like Christian Brown wide open and just record scratch and kill the possession.
Or you could do that. So there needs to be, there needs to be some balance. It's on Adelman to kind of. I think these are the things that Adelman is going to have to navigate. Is that he needs to coach. You know, if Jamal needs to play off ball more, it's kind of on Adelman to coach that out of the guys to get the ball moving more, to get players moving more, to keep those offensive principles as tight as the defensive, coach the offense as much as Malone. I don't want to say Malone wasn't coaching offense because again, I'm trying to be nice, but coach offense as much as you coach defense. I mean, I think that's just like a basic thing is that like, yeah, you can't have record scratch possessions from Christian, from Mike, from these other guys, and you can't get lazy assuming that Jamal Murray and Jokic are just going to bail you out with the two-man game or an isolation. Like that's
Yeah.
not going to be what's going to get the most out of them. Um, yeah, that's how I feel with the starters. But if they can do that, I think they should be the best offense in the league. Going to be honest. If they
Wow.
can solve those things, there's no
Well,
reason they
yeah.
shouldn't be.
Halliburton's out, so they should have better offense than the Pacers. It's going to be interesting to
But
see who else they're contending with there. I guess the Knicks. And yeah, we'll see. Um, Speaking of Adelman, do you have any takes on our new assistants? We got Jared Dudley and JJ Barea from Dallas to come on board.
not really. I'm trying to save that. I'm trying to go into the entire experience with an open mind and not assume anything about anybody and be open to a fresh perspective. I'm glad that they have new names in the building. I think that's good, but I'm gonna wait until I see what they're running and how they're running it and how well coached they are um, before I say like, okay, this is what they should do or should not do. There are things I want from the players, like that Bruce Christian Payton lineup. I kind of want that. I kind of want to see stuff like that. I should say is like how good can we be defensively in a unit? Can we go? Can we have a unit that is like five out? They experimented some with Peyton last year. Can we run a unit that just has immense size? Can we run a double big lineup that's effective? Can Jokic and Jonas play together? I don't know, but I want to find out before the playoffs. I want to have all those things settled before the playoffs. Do all your exploring early. That's all I can really ask for.
I will say that at first I was a little bit surprised that they brought in Jared Dudley because this is probably silly reasoning by me, but to me he's like a part of that you know LeBron clutch world, and
Mhm.
it's like, what does that have to do with Nuggets culture? He took the job because it's like first assistant on the bench, so it's like he's trying to be a head coach one day. I get that, but when I heard his interview at Summer League, I was really encouraged because he already sounded like he was really into holding players accountable. He already started talking about like, Jamal Murray's never been an all-star. How do we get him to that level? And I was like, oh, so this he's actually gonna like hold people accountable because I'm a big believer that when it comes to a staff, you need different personalities. And Adelman to me strikes me as a very cerebral, like X's and O's guy, maybe players coach. He's also like kind of diminutive in stature. I can't picture him like yelling at Jokic or Aaron Gordon. Jared Dudley's like 6'7", used to play in the NBA. Like he's not going to be afraid to get in guys' faces. We need some of that, right? You can't have guys just like walking in there and acting like they run the show. We don't want a repeat of the Brooklyn Nets with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant saying, "Yeah, we don't really need a coach." How did that go? They won like one playoff series in 3 years or something. So I'm glad that Adelman, it's almost like a good self-reflection, right? It's like I hired a guy who's different than me. Even if he wants to be a head coach, like that's a good thing. Like he should want that for himself. But here he can come to a place where I'm a little more soft spoken and maybe he can use his voice more. So I think it's a good addition. JJ, I don't
I'm
really have
happy.
many takes. I don't know.
They're good, solid players. I tend to favor like I think role players tend to make better coaches, low key as well, just
Yeah,
because I think they're a little bit more
they have to think the game more.
and they're empathetic in a way that I don't know if the great players are always. Like
Yeah.
somebody who struggled in the league is going to relate to somebody not maybe being. There's a reason Jordan did not run Charlotte well. I think he has so many expectations. Is like why can't you just do this? Why can't you just do that? Why can't you just be great? And I don't think role players come into it with as much, as coaches with as much suppositions about that.
Right.
But that's most of it. I mean, we're at the hour mark. Is there anything you wanted to get off your chest before we wrap up?
I guess we'll just close with one thought on we didn't really talk about Drawn Holmes today. I thought he had a decent showing in summer league. He didn't light the world on fire, but I thought he played very, very well. I didn't get to watch a ton of the games, but I have been listening to all the other Nuggets pods, and I was really encouraged by what Matt Moore said, which is that he's like on the negative, he didn't look maybe as explosive and athletic as we hoped, but he looked more, cerebral and like thinking the game than maybe was expected for somebody his age. So that's really exciting to know that about a guy who's a rookie, basically. I mean, yeah, he's like we call it a red shirt, right? When you miss the first year and then you're a rookie. But like it does seem like he has the right mentality to play on this team. So we don't know, if he's going to get minutes. I mean, I kind of feel like him and Zeke are in a battle to get those backup power forward minutes. Like that's the only thing that makes sense to me. I don't know why they would tell either guy like you're not going to play. But to me, that's going to be his challenge. Can you beat out Zeke for those backup 4 minutes? And I'm excited for him.
I feel like Zeke. I almost put them in different categories.
Sure.
Like Zeke, not Zeke is like I almost look at Zeke as like you're a hustle guy, whereas I look at Duran as closer to an understudy for Jonas in terms of someone they actually be willing to play through.
So you're
So
wait, but are you saying like Zeke is more of an energy hustle guy and Duran can be more of like a skill guy?
that's how I feel. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously Duran is going to work as hard as he can,
Because the comp I
but
keep hearing for him is Nas Reed. That would be like amazing outcome for us.
yeah, I mean, I think that'd be cool if he can hit his shots and stay out of the way and just be able to, help rebounding, help protect the rim a little bit, don't get pushed over.
Yeah.
I think that's great. There's no one right now that I'm like, they need to be cut out of the rotation. I'd actually much rather see I'm not saying you get to play 13 guys every night because I don't really like that, but I'd rather you played 10 guys that suited the situation, suited the matchup, suited like, hey, we're going to try something different tonight than we are 2 nights from now.
Yeah.
And, you know, give give Jonas a break when he wants one. Like he's 33 too. Like I don't think he needs to play every night either. Give Aaron, Aaron could use a break. All these guys in their early 30s, they deserve time off as much as anybody else. So, as much as there's, I would put Duran probably ahead of Zeke if we're talking about explicitly backup power forward minutes. Yeah, I still want to see them mix it up. Even if it makes Zeke easier to trade, that would be
Well, that's one more thing
super
I was
nice
going
as
to
well.
say is that there's sometimes it's not always the best player, right? It's basketball politics. They might do the thing where they showcase Zeke for like 10 to 12 games, hoping he can play well and move him. We'll see.
Yeah. I think look where you're trying to find. He did really well in the Zion matchup last year. Look for those. Look for those situations where it makes sense to play him, and
Yeah.
that's where you play him. Don't force it, trying to do something he's not suited for.
Well, and he can still be useful. When you're playing those teams on a second night of a back to back and they got to come into, to Ball Arena, Zeke's the perfect guy to throw out there, right? Who's going to sprint down the floor every time. And you're like, oh, I got to run back with this guy. Like, he can be one of those guys that can make like a cumulative impact on the game, even if he's not putting up big numbers, just by wearing him out.
Yeah, yeah, and you got the bodies for that. Like so, yeah. I think we can wrap here. It has been a pleasure talking to you. It's good to see that you're back. I'm glad you made it through your assignment, and yeah, it's hopefully we can chat again soon. If you've made it this far, we appreciate you listening. You can find us online at Four Corners on the YouTubes and at Four Corners a Nuggets podcast on all podcasting platforms. This will be up later today. I also have a shorter video that should release sometime this evening as soon as I can clear like a copyright thing. But yeah, drop us a like, subscribe. It's free, supports the show. And you can find me online at Ravon Hagshaw, Peter at Bucketsons88. And yeah, hit us up for all your nuggets and or hip hop takes. And we'll see you next time.